The massive station hung in the purple glow of the neutron star like a jewel suspended in darkness. Inside its largest chamber, representatives from 47 different species gathered for an emergency session. The air processors worked overtime to accommodate the various atmospheric requirements, creating visible layers of different gases throughout the vast hall. Cathara moved slowly toward the central platform. Her crystalline body caught the light and scattered it in 1,000 directions. She was old, even by Vryn standards. Her people had watched the stars for over 100,000 years, documenting the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Today, she carried a warning that none of them wanted to hear. The chamber quieted as she reached the speaking platform. Her voice, when it came, resonated through translation devices in languages both familiar and utterly alien. "Honored members of the conclave," she began, her body flickering with patterns that conveyed urgency in her native language. "I stand before you to discuss the application for membership submitted by the species known as humans." A ripple of interest moved through the assembly. The humans were a topic of much discussion lately. They had finally achieved faster-than-light travel and had been petitioning for conclave membership for 3 of their years. "I have studied the humans extensively," Cathara continued. "My people have observed their home world for 3 of their centuries. We have watched their progress with great interest and greater concern." She gestured, and holographic displays materialized above the assembly. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. "This is their world. They call it Earth." The planet looked beautiful from space, blue and green and white. "It appears peaceful, does it not? But let me show you the reality." The images changed. Now they showed vast armies clashing across muddy fields, cities burning under aerial bombardment, mushroom clouds rising over population centers. The assembled species watched in growing horror as humanity's violent history played out before them. "They have fought over 500 major wars in the last 2,000 years alone," Cathara said. "They have developed and deployed weapons capable of rendering their own planet uninhabitable. They have committed genocides against their own kind over differences in appearance, belief, and geography." Ambassador Zarkoth of the Zathkun Empire rose from his seat. His forearms crossed over his armored chest in a gesture of dismissal. "Elder Cathara, with respect, many species go through violent phases. We Zathkun were no different in our early history. Conflict drives evolution. It creates strength." "You misunderstand my concern," Cathara replied, her crystalline form pulsing with orange warning colors. "I do not object to their capacity for violence. I object to their fundamental nature. Humans are different from any species currently in the conclave." She brought up new images. These showed Earth's animals, predators chasing prey across vast plains, creatures with forward-facing eyes and sharp teeth. Humans evolved as apex predators on what they themselves call a death world. Their planet has gravity 30% higher than the conclave standard. Their atmosphere is corrosive to many of our member species. Their microbiology is so aggressive that a simple infection can kill most of you within days. "This is irrelevant," interrupted Sylveth of the Ilvari Collective. Her silver skin gleamed under the station lights. "Their technology is decades behind ours. Their ships are slow and primitive. What threat could they possibly pose?" Cathara's body flashed red, the Vryn equivalent of a sharp laugh. "Threat? You think I fear them militarily? No, I fear what they represent. Let me show you something else." The hologram changed again. This time, it showed human exploration. Ships pushing into hostile environments. Colonies established on worlds that should have been uninhabitable. Humans in spacesuits walking on their airless moon, planting flags and building bases. Humans have a trait that I have never seen in any other species, Cathara said quietly. They do not stop, ever. When faced with an obstacle, they do not retreat. They do not negotiate. They do not wait for evolution to adapt them. They adapt their environment instead. They are persistence hunters on a cosmic scale. This sounds like admiration, Zarkoth said, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Perhaps the ancient Vryn have grown soft in their old age. You see primitives with crude rockets, and you tremble? Other species joined in the laughter. The Ilvari delegation chittered among themselves. Even the normally reserved Quathil showed their pleasure fans in agreement. Cathara waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and hard. I have lived for 4,000 of your standard years. I have watched 63 species join the conclave. I have seen the Zathkun rise from stone tools to starships. I have witnessed the Ilvari invent quantum computing. I have observed more civilizations than you can imagine. She paused, letting her words sink in. And in all that time, I have never seen a species quite like humanity. She activated another display. This one showed a simple graph tracking human technological progress. They went from their first heavier-than-air flight to walking on their moon in 66 years, from their first computer to artificial intelligence in 70 years, from discovering the atom to splitting it in 40 years. Their rate of advancement is exponential in a way that defies all our models. But they fight among themselves constantly, Sylveth countered. They waste resources on internal conflicts. A unified species would have achieved much more. You still do not understand, Cathara said, and now there was something like sadness in her voice. Their conflicts do not weaken them. They strengthen them. Every war teaches them new ways to kill. Every peace teaches them new ways to build. They learn from everything. They never forget. They never forgive. And most importantly, they never stop adapting. She brought up one final image. It showed a human child, no more than 5 or 6 years old, learning to ride a bicycle. The child fell, scraped their knee, cried briefly, and got back on, fell again, got back on again, over and over until finally, the child rode away successfully. This, Cathara said, pointing at the image, is what you must understand about humans. They teach their young that failure is temporary, that pain is a lesson, that giving up is the only true defeat. They have a saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. It is not just a pleasant phrase, it is their fundamental philosophy. The chamber was quiet now. Some of the representatives were beginning to look uncomfortable. I propose 3 options, Cathara concluded. First, reject their application entirely. Second, accept them but enforce strict containment protocols around their space. Third, and this is what I recommend, establish them as a protected species and guide their development carefully over the next 1,000 years. The vote was called. The results came in quickly. 31 species voted to grant humanity full provisional membership with no restrictions. 16 voted with the Vryn for containment. 0 voted for rejection or protection. Cathara watched the results display with her ancient eyes. She gathered her delegation and moved toward the exit. As she passed Zarkoth, the Zathkun ambassador called out to her. Running away, Elder? Perhaps the Vryn have forgotten what it means to be strong. Cathara stopped. She turned her crystalline body to face him fully. I have studied the humans for 300 years, she said softly. I have watched them overcome every obstacle their brutal world threw at them. I have seen them turn disasters into opportunities, and enemies into allies. I have observed them grieve their dead, and then channel that grief into unstoppable momentum. Her body pulsed with deep dark blue, the color of profound warning. They have one fatal trait, that you will learn about soon enough. When you push them, they do not break. They do not bend. They push back twice as hard. And they never, ever stop. She left the chamber in silence. Behind her, the celebration continued. Humanity had been accepted into the conclave. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months passed since humanity joined the conclave. For the most part, things went well. Human traders eagerly exchanged goods with alien markets. Human diplomats attended every session and learned the complex politics of galactic civilization. Human scientists collaborated with researchers from dozens of species, sharing knowledge and making friends. But not everyone was pleased with the new members. Ambassador Zarkoth of the Zathkun Empire watched the humans with growing annoyance. They were too enthusiastic, too friendly, too eager to participate. They acted as if they belonged among species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. It grated on him. Someone needed to teach them their place. The opportunity came when a human colony ship, the New Horizon, departed from Earth, carrying 15,000 colonists to a newly approved world called New Terra. The ship traveled with 2 escort frigates, small military vessels that looked like toys compared to proper warships. Zarkoth dispatched the Eternal Victory, one of his empire's heavy cruisers, to intercept them in neutral space. The ship's commander, war leader Krathnal, relished the assignment. It had been too long since the Zathkun had reminded the galaxy of their strength. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the New Horizon when the proximity alarm started screaming. The massive Zathkun cruiser dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in their path. "All ships battle stations," Sarah ordered calmly. She was young for a captain, only 32, but she had earned her position through merit. "Open a channel." The view screen flickered to life. War leader Krathnal's four-eyed face filled the display, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "Human vessel," he said, in heavily accented standard. "You travel through space, claimed by the Zathkun Empire. You must pay tribute for safe passage." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. She checked the navigation charts. "This is neutral space, war leader. No tribute is required, or will be paid." Krathnal's laugh was a harsh, barking sound. Brave words from such a small ship. "Perhaps you do not understand your situation. My vessel alone could destroy your entire flotilla. Then you would be committing an act of war against a conclave member species," Sarah replied steadily. "I strongly advise against it." "War?" Krathnal seemed delighted by the word. "You think your primitive species could wage war against the Zathkun Empire? We have 6,000 warships. We control 47 star systems. We have fought and won 3 conclave conflicts. You have 36 ships and 1 barely habitable world." "Nevertheless," Sarah said, "we will not pay tribute. Continue on your way, war leader, and we will continue on ours." For a moment, Krathnal simply stared at her. Then his amusement faded into cold anger. "Very well," he said quietly. "Let this be a lesson to all humans about their place in the galaxy." The channel cut off. Sarah had exactly 2 seconds to shout a warning before the Eternal Victory's main weapons opened fire. The escort frigate Defiant vanished in a ball of superheated plasma. 347 crew members died instantly. The New Horizons bridge went silent except for the sound of alarms. Sarah stared at the empty space where the Defiant had been. Her hands gripped the armrests of her command chair so hard, her knuckles went white. "Captain?" her first officer asked quietly. "Orders?" Sarah took a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice was utterly calm. "Continue to New Terra. Maximum speed. Send a full report to Earth and Conclave Central. Include all sensor data and communications logs." She paused. "And send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we have a response recommendation." "What recommendation, Captain?" Sarah looked at the empty space again. "Total war." The message reached Earth 3 days later. It reached Conclave Central the day after that. And then everything happened very quickly. The Zathkun expected diplomatic protests. They expected negotiations. They expected the humans to file grievances through proper channels and wait for the conclave to issue strongly worded condemnations. That was how civilized species handled such matters. Instead, 72 hours after the Defiant's destruction, the human government issued a formal declaration of war against the Zathkun Empire. The galaxy was shocked. Species did not declare war over a single ship. Wars were complex affairs of economics and politics and carefully calculated advantages. Wars were last resorts that came after years of failed diplomacy. The Zathkun were not shocked. They were amused. "The humans have gone mad," Zarkov announced to the conclave. "We destroyed one obsolete frigate as a lesson in respect, and they declare total war? This proves what we have always known. They are too primitive, too emotional, too barbaric for civilized space." The Ilvari agreed. The Quathil expressed concern, but sided with the Zathkun. 40 other species voted to remain neutral and let the two parties settle their dispute. Only the Vryn voted to censure the Zathkun for their attack. Katara tried one more time to warn the conclave. "You do not understand what you have done," she said to the assembly. "You have shown the humans that the conclave will not protect them. You have taught them that in this galaxy, strength is the only law that matters. They will learn this lesson very well." Nobody listened. The first battle happened 3 weeks later in the Proxima Contested Zone, a region of space claimed by both the Zathkun and 2 other species. The Zathkun sent a standard patrol fleet of 12 ships. They expected the humans to send a similar force for a symbolic engagement. Instead, 47 human vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel in a tight formation. The Zathkun commander immediately noted that the human ships were inferior in almost every way. Their shields were weaker, their weapons had shorter range, their armor was thinner. He ordered his ships to engage at maximum range, planning to destroy the human fleet before they could even fire back. The humans did something unexpected. They accelerated directly toward the Zathkun fleet at maximum speed. They did not try to dodge. They just came forward, like bullets fired from a gun. The Zathkun destroyed 6 human ships in the first volley. Then 8 more. The humans kept coming. When they finally entered weapons range, they fired everything at once. Missiles, kinetic rounds, energy weapons, everything. But more than that, they did something no civilized species had done in over 1,000 years. 3 human destroyers, already damaged and leaking atmosphere, activated their faster-than-light drives while still in normal space. The physics should have torn them apart. Instead, they accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed and rammed directly into Zathkun capital ships. The destroyer Armstrong hit the Zathkun carrier Glorious Hunt at 90% of light speed. The resulting explosion consumed the carrier and 3 escort cruisers in a sphere of annihilation. The destroyer Patton struck the battleship Eternal Conqueror amidships, breaking it in half. The destroyer Hood clipped the cruiser War's Edge, sending both ships tumbling into uncontrolled spins before they exploded. The Zathkun won the battle. Of course they did. They had superior numbers and superior technology, but they lost 5 capital ships and over 8,000 crew members. The humans lost 23 ships and 4,000 crew. But the humans had proven something terrifying. Every single one of their ships was a potential weapon. Every single crew member was willing to die. The Zathkun fleet commander sent his report back to headquarters. He included the intercepted human communications from the battle. One message in particular caught attention. It came from the destroyer Armstrong in the seconds before impact. "For the Defiant, for the Fallen, all ships are weapons, all crew are willing. See you in hell." When Zarkov read the report, he felt something he had not experienced in many years. A cold touch of fear ran down his spine. An emergency conclave session was called. Cathara attended but did not speak. She simply transmitted a single message to the assembly. "We told you. They are persistence hunters. They evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They will not stop until you are extinct, or they are. There is no middle ground with humans. There never was." The session dissolved into chaos. Some species called for immediate intervention. Others demanded that the conclave stay neutral. The Zathkun insisted they could handle a primitive species. But in the darkness between the stars, human shipyards worked around the clock. And every human in the galaxy, from soldiers to schoolchildren, knew 347 names by heart. The crew of the Defiant, the first martyrs, the ones who would be avenged no matter the cost. The war had only just begun. 14 months into the war, the galaxy was learning what the Vin had tried to warn them about. The Zathkun Empire controlled 47 star systems. They had 6,000 warships. Their technology was proven over thousands of years of warfare. By every logical calculation, they should have crushed humanity in a matter of weeks. Instead, the war spread like wildfire across 12 systems. Every battle cost the Zathkun more ships than they expected. Every victory was Pyrrhic. Every engagement revealed new human tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. War leader Krathnal stood on the bridge of his new flagship and stared at the tactical display. His fourth flagship, he noted bitterly. The humans had destroyed the previous three. They had a disturbing tendency to focus all their fire on command vessels, even if it meant sacrificing their entire fleet to do so. "Report from the occupation force on New Terra," his communications officer announced. Krathnal activated the display and read the report. Then he read it again, certain he had misunderstood. That was impossible. It had to be impossible. New Terra had fallen to Zathkun forces 6 months ago. The planet held 3 million human colonists, mostly farmers and their families. They had no military garrison, no orbital defenses, nothing but a handful of police officers with small arms. The Zathkun had landed 20,000 soldiers and declared the planet pacified within a week. The report told a different story. The human population had not surrendered. They had not accepted occupation. Instead, every single one of them had become a combatant. Farmers used agricultural chemicals to make explosives. Teenagers sabotaged equipment and communication lines. Elderly civilians walked into Zathkun checkpoints with bombs strapped to their bodies. Children left poisoned food where soldiers would find it. The Zathkun garrison now numbered 40,000 soldiers, and they were still losing ground. In 6 months of occupation, they had suffered over 15,000 casualties. They controlled the cities during the day, but at night, the humans owned the darkness. Krathnal read one particular incident report with growing horror. A Zathkun patrol had entered a human school. They found it empty, except for a single human female, elderly and frail. She was sitting at a desk, hands folded, smiling at them. When they approached, she pressed a button. The entire building exploded, killing her and 37 soldiers. The patrol's commander had recovered the woman's personal log. Her final entry read simply, "For my grandson, who died on the Defiant. For my species. For Earth. I die free." "How many soldiers do we need to hold one agricultural world?" Krathnal asked quietly. His tactical officer checked the reports. At current casualty rates, at least 50,000, perhaps more. The humans show no signs of reducing their resistance. Krathnal closed his eyes. They were using 50,000 elite soldiers to hold one farming planet. Humanity had 12 colony worlds. If the resistance pattern held, the Zathkun would need over 500,000 soldiers just for occupation duty. And they still had to fight the actual human fleet. The mathematics were becoming untenable. Then the biological weapons were deployed. Zathkun intelligence discovered that human research stations were developing biological weapons specifically designed to target Zathkun physiology. The Empire's high command made a decision. If the humans wanted to play with disease, the Zathkun would show them what real biological warfare looked like. They deployed a plague on the human colony world of Haven. 3 weeks later, 2.1 million humans were dead. The colony was effectively sterilized. The galaxy waited for humanity's response. Many species expected biological retaliation. Some worried about escalation to planet-killing weapons. A few hoped the massive casualties would finally bring the humans to the negotiating table. The human response arrived 2 months later, and it was nothing anyone expected. Every major news network in the galaxy received the same transmission. It showed a human scientist, a woman in her 50s, wearing a white lab coat. Behind her, holographic displays showed complex molecular structures. "My name is Dr. Rebecca Martinez," she said calmly. "I lead the Human Bioweapons Research Program. Our scientists had studied the Zathkun infection closely. We found a counteragent, a cure that could save the infected on Haven. But it requires a unique delivery method." There was a pause. The galaxy held its breath. She continued, "We are currently deploying this cure through a planet-wide aerosol network. It's already spreading across Haven. We offer it freely to all life, human or Zathkun alike. This is the end of the conflict, not through warfare. In response to the Zathkun biological attack on Haven, we have successfully engineered a counter-virus." She gestured to the displays. "This organism is designed specifically to target Zathkun biology. It is airborne. It is highly contagious. It has a 98% fatality rate among Zathkun populations. It is stable enough to survive in various environments, but unstable enough that it will burn itself out after eliminating its host population. In short, it is a species killer." The galaxy watched in stunned silence. "We could deploy this weapon tomorrow," Dr. Martinez continued. "We could wipe the Zathkun from the galaxy within 6 months. We have the delivery systems ready. We have the production facilities online. We have the authorization to proceed." She paused, and her expression softened slightly. "But we will not use it. Not yet. Not unless we have no other choice. This broadcast includes the complete genetic sequence and manufacturing process for our weapon. We are publishing it openly. Every species in the Conclave can verify our claims. Every species can see that we have the capability to commit genocide." Her voice hardened. "We are showing you this for one reason. We want the Zathkun to understand what they have awakened. We want them to know that we can end their entire species, and we are choosing not to. We are offering them one chance to surrender. Unconditional and immediate. If they refuse, we will not use biological weapons. We will do something worse." The transmission ended. For 3 days the galaxy held its breath. Then the Zathkun High Command issued their response. They called the human claim a bluff. They stated that no primitive species could develop such a sophisticated weapon. They vowed to continue the war until humanity was broken. The humans did not reply with words. Instead, they deployed weapons that would be remembered in horror for generations. They called them relativistic kill missiles. The name was technical and boring. The reality was apocalyptic. The weapons were simple in concept. Take a large asteroid, attach engines, accelerate it to 90% of light speed, and aim it at a planet. The kinetic energy released on impact would be equivalent to thousands of nuclear weapons. 3 Zathkun industrial worlds were struck within a week. Early warning systems detected the incoming asteroids, but there was no defense. You cannot shoot down something traveling at 90% of light speed. You cannot evacuate a planet in the few hours between detection and impact. You can only watch and wait for death. The asteroid that hit Zathkun Prime, the Empire's industrial heart, was only 3 kilometers across. When it struck, it released more energy than every nuclear weapon ever built by either species combined. The impact crater was 200 kilometers wide. The shock waves circled the planet 3 times. The debris thrown into the atmosphere triggered an impact winter that would last for years. 6 billion Zathkun died in the 3 strikes. 6 billion souls, gone in flashes of light, brighter than the sun. The human message was simple and direct. It played on every communication channel in Zathkun space. For the Defiant. For Haven. For every human life you have taken. This is proportional response. This is measured retaliation. This is us showing restraint. The speaker paused. Surrender now, or we will target your remaining 44 worlds, one by one, until your species exists only in history books. The Conclave Emergency Council met in emergency session. Ambassador Zarkoth was not present. He had been on Zathkun Prime when the asteroid struck. His remains were now part of a crater floor, vaporized and mixed with 6 billion others. The Ilvari representative stood to speak. Her silver skin had lost its luster. She looked small and afraid. We must intervene, she said. The humans have gone too far. They are committing genocide. They must be stopped. Cathara rose slowly from her seat. Every being in the chamber turned to look at the ancient Vryn. Her crystalline body pulsed with deep, sad colors. Genocide? She asked softly. The Zathkun deployed biological weapons first. They killed 2 million civilians. The humans developed a counterweapon capable of ending the Zathkun species completely. And they chose not to use it. Instead, they used conventional weapons against military and industrial targets. This is not genocide. This is war. But 6 billion dead, the Ilvari protested. How can you defend such slaughter? I merely point out that you created this situation. You voted to admit humanity to the Conclave. You voted to remain neutral when the Zathkun attacked them. You taught the humans that in this galaxy, strength is the only law. They learned that lesson very well. She turned to address the entire assembly. The humans told the Zathkun to surrender. They offered terms. They provided a way out. The Zathkun refused, and so the humans escalated. This is what I tried to warn you about. Humans do not fight to win battles. They fight to end wars. And they will pay any price, inflict any horror, to achieve that end. The chamber fell silent. Then new reports started coming in. The Zathkun Empire was collapsing. Their emperor had committed ritual suicide. Their remaining fleet was requesting ceasefire negotiations. Their people were begging for peace. The human response was immediate and clear. Unconditional surrender or total annihilation. Choose. The Zathkun chose surrender. They had no other option. The war that was supposed to teach humanity its place had instead taught the galaxy a far more important lesson. Never underestimate a species that evolved by chasing prey until it died of exhaustion. Because humans do not stop. They never stop. 22 months after the war began, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. The mighty Zathkun Empire, conquerors of 3 conclave conflicts, masters of 47 star systems, surrendered unconditionally to a species that had barely left its home world 3 years ago. The surrender ceremony took place aboard the Conclave peacekeeping station Aurora. Representatives from every member species attended, though many looked at the human delegation with newfound fear. General James Morrison stood at the negotiating table, his dress uniform crisp and perfectly pressed. Across from him sat the remnants of Zathkun leadership, 4 military commanders who had survived the war. They looked diminished, their proud bearing broken. The galaxy expected harsh terms: territorial annexation, economic tribute, enslavement of the conquered population. This was how wars ended in conclave space. The strong dominated the weak, and everyone accepted it as natural law. General Morrison presented humanity's terms. Complete demilitarization of the Zathkun Empire. Reduction of military forces to a small planetary defense fleet. War crimes tribunals for those who had ordered attacks on civilian populations. Reparations to be paid over 50 years. And that was all. No territorial demands. No occupation. No enslavement. No genocide. The Zathkun commanders stared at the terms in disbelief. One of them, war leader Velshara, finally spoke. "You would let us live, after everything we have done?" Morrison looked at her with tired eyes. "We did not want this war. You forced it upon us. But we are not conquerors. We do not seek to dominate. We want peace, and we want to make sure you never threaten us again. That is all." The terms were accepted. The Zathkun Empire was broken, but not destroyed. Humanity had won the war, but they had done so with a mix of brutality and unexpected mercy that confused the entire conclave. Not everyone learned the lesson, though. The Ilvari Collective watched the surrender with growing concern. 6 other species had allied with the Zathkun during the war, providing intelligence and material support. None of them had committed military forces, so they had assumed they were safe from human retaliation. They were wrong. High Counselor Sylveth of the Ilvari called an emergency meeting of her government. "The humans are exhausted," she argued. "They lost thousands of ships and millions of citizens. Their economy is strained from 2 years of total war. Now is the time to act, before they can recover and turn their attention to us." The Ilvari military agreed. They had watched human tactics throughout the war. They believed they could counter them. They had prepared defenses against relativistic weapons. They had developed countermeasures against human boarding actions. They had everything planned. They launched what they called a preemptive defensive strike. Ilvari warships hit human shipyards in 3 systems simultaneously. 2 orbital construction facilities were destroyed completely. The human casualties numbered over 50,000. The Ilvari expected negotiations. They expected humanity to recognize that continuing to fight would be costly. They expected a settlement that would leave them secure and humanity chastened. Instead, humanity activated something called Protocol Nemesis. The protocol had been designed during the early days of the war as a final contingency plan. Every human star system had secretly militarized its asteroid belts and outer system resources. Thousands of weapons platforms had been built and hidden in the darkness between planets. Automated factories had been constructed on lifeless moons and frozen comets. When Protocol Nemesis activated, the human star systems transformed into fortresses. Nothing could get in or out without facing overwhelming firepower. Any invasion force would be destroyed before it could reach a populated planet. But that was only the defensive half of the protocol. The offensive half was worse. Throughout the war, human merchant vessels had traveled to dozens of conclave worlds, including Ilvari space. They had been trading ships, carrying goods, and establishing commercial relationships. Everyone had assumed they were harmless. They were not merchant vessels. They were sleeper ships. Each one carried a compact manufacturing system and enough raw materials to bootstrap production. They had been positioned in uninhabited systems near major Ilvari worlds. When Protocol Nemesis activated, they woke up. Within 2 weeks, those hidden factories began producing human war machines using local asteroids and comets. Automated mining drones stripped resources. Assembly lines built weapons platforms. Construction systems fabricated warships. The Ilvari watched in growing horror as human fleets materialized in their space, not from faster-than-light jumps, but from factories they had never known existed. Every ship was unmanned, controlled by artificial intelligence. Every platform was expendable, and they kept coming, like a swarm of locusts, consuming everything in their path. But the humans did not invade. They did something more devastating. They blockaded every Ilvari world completely. No ships in, no ships out, no communications, no trade, nothing. The Ilvari economy was based on interstellar commerce. They imported food from agricultural worlds. They imported medicine from pharmaceutical systems. They imported everything because they had specialized each of their worlds to maximum efficiency. That efficiency became their downfall. Within 3 weeks, food riots broke out on 12 Ilvari worlds. Within 5 weeks, medical supplies ran critically low. Within 6 weeks, their economy collapsed completely. And the human blockade did not waver. The automated warships simply sat in space, silent and patient, waiting. The Ilvari High Command sent increasingly desperate messages to the human government. They offered reparations. They offered apologies. They offered territorial concessions. The human response was always the same: unconditional surrender. On the 43rd day of the blockade, High Counselor Sylvith stood before her people and announced their surrender. The Ilvari Collective, one of the most technologically advanced species in the Conclave, had been brought to its knees without a single ground battle. The galaxy was learning a terrifying truth. Humans understood war in ways that the Conclave could not comprehend. They did not just fight battles. They fought entire civilizations. They targeted not just military forces, but the economic and social structures that supported them. They were patient and thorough and absolutely ruthless. It was during this time that Elder Cathara requested a private meeting with the Human Security Council. She traveled to Earth herself, the first Vryn to visit the human homeworld since they achieved spaceflight. She met with them in a secure facility beneath the Himalayas. The council members sat around a table, looking exhausted. 2 years of total war had aged them all. President Elena Vasquez, who had authorized the relativistic strikes, looked particularly tired. Cathara's crystalline body pulsed with gentle, respectful colors as she spoke. "I must confess something to you," she said. "The Vryn have been helping you throughout this war. We provided intelligence on Zathkun fleet movements. We shared navigational data for safe routes through contested space. We warned you when the Ilvari were planning their strike, though you received that warning too late to prevent it entirely." General Morrison leaned forward. "Why? Why would you help us?" "Because I have lived for 4,000 years, Cathara replied. "I have seen the patterns of history repeat across countless civilizations. I knew that if you entered the Conclave, conflict was inevitable. The established powers would test you. You would either break or become dominant. There was no middle path." "And you wanted us to become dominant?" President Vasquez asked. "Better you than the alternatives," Cathara said simply. "You are brutal, but not cruel. You are warlike, but not sadistic. You wage war to end it, not to prolong it. You offer fair terms to those who surrender. These qualities are rare in the galaxy." She paused, and her color shifted to deep warning tones. "But I must tell you something else. The Conclave has 3 founding species that you have not yet encountered. They are called the progenitors. They have existed for millions of years. They possess technology that makes everything you have seen look primitive, and they do not tolerate chaos in their galaxy." The council members exchanged glances. "Are you saying they will come after us?" Morrison asked. "I am certain of it," Cathara replied. "You have disrupted the established order. You have shown that the Conclave's power structure can be challenged. You have introduced weapons and tactics that horrify species that have known peace for millennia. The progenitors will awaken from their isolation, and they will demand that you be contained or eliminated." President Vasquez stood and walked to the window. Outside, Earth turned peacefully below them, blue and green and beautiful. Billions of humans lived on that fragile sphere, unaware of the cosmic forces gathering against them. "We didn't want any of this," she said quietly. We just wanted to explore the stars and make friends. But we won't let anyone make us into victims. Not the Zathkun, not the Ilvari, not these progenitors. Cathara's colors pulsed with something that might have been sadness, or might have been approval. I know. That is both your greatest strength and your most terrible burden. You cannot stop being what you are. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez, the oldest member of the council, spoke for the first time. Then let them come. We'll be ready. We're always ready. Because that's what humans do. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And we never ever give up. The meeting ended, and Cathara returned to her people. She filed a report that would be sealed for 1,000 years, describing everything she had learned about humanity. The final line read simply, "They will either save the galaxy or burn it down. Perhaps both. May the stars have mercy on us all." 3 years after the Zathkun War ended, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new order. 17 species now existed under human protection agreements. They were not quite vassals, but they were not truly independent either. They traded with humanity, followed human security guidelines, and consulted human advisors on military matters. The humans insisted these were defensive arrangements. Most of the galaxy saw them as an empire in everything but name. Fear and resentment spread through the conclave like a slow poison. Species that had existed peacefully for thousands of years now looked at the upstart humans and saw their own potential extinction. Diplomatic meetings grew tense. Trade relationships fractured. Some species began secretly arming themselves, preparing for a conflict they hoped would never come. And in the deepest reaches of space, in pocket dimensions folded away from normal reality, ancient beings stirred from their long sleep. The progenitors had built the foundation of galactic civilization millions of years before most current species had even evolved. They were the eternal architects, masters of matter and energy, the weavers of silence, who could manipulate the fabric of space-time itself, the dimensional shepherds, who existed partially outside normal reality. They had created the conclave as an experiment in guided evolution, watching younger species develop while they meditated in isolation. For ages, the galaxy had been peaceful enough to ignore. But now, alarms echoed through their ancient systems. The humans had disrupted everything. The progenitors emerged. Their ships appeared simultaneously above Earth, New Terra, and 15 other human worlds. The vessels were impossible to properly see. They existed in more dimensions than human sensors could detect. They were there and not there, solid and incorporeal, real and dreamlike, all at once. The message they broadcast was clear in every human language and dialect. You are humanity. You have disrupted the natural order of the galaxy. You have introduced chaos where there was peace. You have spread fear where there was cooperation. You have 24 of your hours to respond to our ultimatum. Disarm completely and accept isolation within your home system, or be eradicated from existence. There will be no negotiation. There will be no appeal. Choose. The human government went into emergency session. Fleet Admiral Morrison wanted to fight. Every simulation ended in complete human defeat within hours. The progenitor technology was so far beyond human capability that warfare was meaningless. President Vasquez, now in her second term, made a different choice. She requested a single meeting before the ultimatum expired. To everyone's surprise, the progenitors agreed. The meeting took place on a neutral station, one of the old conclave facilities. The progenitors sent avatars, physical projections of themselves that could interact with normal space. They appeared as figures of light and geometry, beautiful and terrifying. Humanity sent Dr. Elena Vasquez, their president, along with a small delegation. Cathara of the Viren attended as an observer, watching history unfold. President Vasquez stood before beings that had existed for millions of years and spoke calmly. You have given us an ultimatum based on a fundamental misunderstanding, she said. You believe we seek chaos and dominance. You are wrong. We seek survival. The avatar of the eternal architect spoke, its voice like crystal singing. You have conquered species. You have destroyed worlds. You claim this is survival? Yes, Vasquez replied. She activated a holographic display. Let me show you our history from our perspective. The display showed the Zathkun attack on the Defiant, the unprovoked destruction, the Conclave's refusal to intervene, the impossible choice humanity faced, submit to bullying or fight back. We did not want war, Vasquez continued. We wanted to join a galactic community and learn from older species. Instead, we learned that in this galaxy strength is the only protection. We learned that the Conclave will not defend the weak. We learned that we could only rely on ourselves. She showed the Ilvari attack, the biological weapons deployed against Haven. Every act of aggression against humanity, every weapon we deployed, was in response to attacks against our civilians. Every species under our protection came to us asking for help because they feared becoming the next target. She paused. We did not create this situation. We adapted to it. That is what humans do. We survive. The weaver of silence rippled in patterns that suggested consideration. You justify atrocity with necessity. No, Vasquez said firmly. I do not justify it. I explain it. We offered surrender terms to our enemies. We could have committed genocide against the Zathkun with biological weapons. We chose not to. We could have invaded and enslaved the Ilvari. We chose not to. We have been strategically cruel to establish deterrence, not to satisfy bloodlust. She looked directly at the progenitor avatars. You want to judge us? Fine. But judge us fairly. Every species that we defeated fired the first shot. Every species that asked for our protection was threatened by others. We are not conquerors. We are survivors who refuse to be victims. The dimensional shepherd spoke for the first time, its voice echoing from multiple realities at once. Your words are eloquent, but words are cheap. We will test your true nature. A new challenge appeared. The progenitors would provide humanity with a simulation. One human ship against one progenitor vessel. Combat scenario. Winner take all. If the human could damage the progenitor ship, even in simulation, humanity would be granted a different path. If not, the ultimatum would stand. Captain Sarah Chen volunteered immediately. She had survived the New Horizon incident. She had fought in 15 major battles during the war. She was older now, carrying scars both visible and hidden, but her eyes were still sharp. The simulation began. Chen's ship was a standard human heavy cruiser. The progenitor vessel was something beyond comprehension, a ship that bent physics around itself like a cloak. Every human sensor showed different readings. Every weapon system struggled to find a target. For 43 minutes, Chen fought the impossible battle. She used every trick humanity had developed, relativistic attacks that the progenitor ship dodged easily, EM warfare that had no effect on its systems, ramming attempts that passed through it like smoke. But Chen had not survived 15 battles by giving up. She studied the progenitor ship's patterns. She noticed that when it phased through attacks, there was a momentary fluctuation in its energy signature. A weakness? Maybe. Probably not. But it was something. She set her ship on a collision course and armed every weapon simultaneously. The progenitor ship began to phase, preparing to let her pass through harmlessly. At the last possible second, Chen fired everything at the exact point where the fluctuation appeared. The simulation froze. Damage indicators appeared on the progenitor vessel. Minor damage, barely a scratch, but damage nonetheless. The simulation ended. Chen sat in her chair, breathing hard. She had lost, but she had touched them. In 40 million years of their existence, no species had ever damaged a progenitor vessel, even in simulation. The progenitor avatars conferred silently. Then the Eternal Architect spoke. In all our existence, no species has done what you just did, not because of strength, because of creativity. You saw a pattern we did not know existed in our own technology. You adapted in real time. You refused to accept the impossible. The Weaver of Silence added, "We have made a decision. We will not eradicate you, but neither can we allow you to continue unchecked." The Dimensional Shepherd presented the new arrangement. Humanity would become the Conclave's immune system. They would defend against external threats and internal aggression, but they would operate under progenitor oversight. They would be given access to advanced technology, but with limitations. They would be protectors, not conquerors. In exchange, the progenitors would shield humanity from collective retaliation. They would ensure that no coalition could form against them. They would guarantee human survival. You evolved to hunt, the Eternal Architect said. You evolved to protect your pack. You evolved to never give up. These traits make you dangerous, but they also make you useful. Be what you are, but be it in service to the greater good. President Vasquez considered the offer. It was not ideal. Humanity would still be constrained, but it was better than extinction, better than isolation. It gave them a future. We accept, she said. Cathara watched the proceedings with her ancient eyes. Later, she addressed the conclave one final time. You mocked our warnings, she said to the assembly. You dismissed our concerns. You learned the hard way that humans are different, not because they are evil, but because they evolved to survive the unsurvivable. She gestured to the human delegation. They are persistence hunters on a cosmic scale. They chase prey until it collapses, but they also protect their pack with absolute devotion. They are what the galaxy needs, guardians who understand both mercy and strength, protectors who know the cost of violence and choose it only when necessary. The conclave accepted the progenitor's decision. They had no choice. But over the following years, something unexpected happened. The fear faded. The resentment eased. Humanity proved to be fair guardians. They protected the weak. They punished aggressors. They enforced peace, not through tyranny, but through deterrence. 5 years after the progenitor's emergence, the galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in millennia. Wars still happened, but they were smaller, shorter, and less destructive. Everyone knew that if things escalated too far, the humans would intervene, and nobody wanted to face human intervention. But humans themselves never forgot. Every year on the anniversary of the Defiant's destruction, every human settlement held remembrance ceremonies. They read the names of the 347 crew members. They remembered the lesson their species had learned. The galaxy would not protect them. They could only protect themselves. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez, now ancient and confined to a wheelchair, attended the ceremony at Arlington Space Memorial. He sat in the cold rain and listened to the names. When the ceremony ended, he remained, looking up at the stars. A young reporter approached him. Admiral, do you think humanity did the right thing? All those lives lost? All that destruction? Was it worth it? Rodriguez was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was soft but firm. We didn't want to be warriors. We wanted to be explorers, scientists, artists, friends to the galaxy. He paused. But when they made us choose between extinction and evolution, we chose to evolve. When they made us choose between submission and strength, we chose strength. When they made us choose between being victims and being survivors, we chose to survive. He looked at the memorial, where 347 names glowed in eternal light. Was it worth it? Ask me if I would trade those lives for humanity's freedom. Ask me if I would go back and choose submission instead. He shook his head. We paid a terrible price, but we are still here. We are still free. We are still human. That has to be worth something. The reporter left. Rodriguez remained, an old soldier keeping vigil. Somewhere in deep space, a human scout ship detected a new anomaly at the galaxy's edge. Something vast and ancient, stirring in the darkness between the stars. Something that made even the progenitors seem young. The report reached Rodriguez's successor, Fleet Admiral Chen, Sarah Chen, who had faced the progenitors in simulation and lived. She read the report and smiled grimly. "Here we go again," she said. Because that was what humans did. They faced the impossible. They adapted to the unsurvivable. They never stopped. They never gave up. They never forgot. The elders had cautioned the galaxy about them, but nobody listened until it was too late. And by then, humanity had already become what the galaxy needed most. Guardians who had learned through pain that peace was worth protecting, and that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be willing to wage war. They were not conquerors. They were not tyrants. They were survivors who had chosen to protect those who could not protect themselves. And in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations and cosmic powers, that made them something truly unique.